The story of human ingenuity is often told through the things we make. But what if one of the most important innovations in our history wasn't an invention, but a strategy? What if the simple act of carrying a rock from one place to another was the spark that forged the human mind? For millennia, we've looked at sharpened stones as the first symbols of technology. But a more profound story lies not just in the tool, but in its journey. This is the story of the first commute, a tale of our earliest ancestors as road warriors, whose deliberate transport of stone tools laid the very foundation for the complex world we live in today. Recently, at a windswept site in southwestern Kenya named Nyayanga, overlooking the shores of Lake Victoria, archaeologists unearthed a trove of stone tools and butchered animal bones dated as early as 2.9 million years ago. These tools belong to the Oldowan toolkit, the earliest widespread stone tool industry. But the most startling revelation wasn't just their age. Geochemical analysis revealed that many of the hammerstones and sharp-edged flakes were crafted from quartzite and rhyolite types of rock that are not found locally. The nearest sources for these high-quality materials were located up to 13 kilometers or about 8 miles away. This single finding pushes back the evidence for long-distance logistical planning by a staggering 600,000 years. It tells us that the real innovation of our ancestors wasn't just the ability to chip a stone to create a sharp edge, but the foresight to carry that stone to where it would be most useful. They weren't just tool makers, they were logisticians. To grasp the weight of this discovery, we have to understand how our view of stone tools has evolved. For much of history, these objects were dismissed as thunderstones, thought to be products of lightning strikes. It wasn't until the 19th century that scholars finally accepted them as artifacts of a pre-metallic Stone Age. The search for our origins then shifted to Africa, where Louis and Mary Leakey made revolutionary discoveries in Tanzania's Olduvai Gorge. In the 1930s, they unearthed a simple yet effective toolkit they named the Oldowan industry, dating to around 1.8 million years ago. In the 1960s, when they found fossils of a new species, Homo habilis, or handyman, alongside these tools, the story seemed simple. Our own genus, Homo, invented technology. This narrative was later layered with the discovery of a more sophisticated industry, the Acheulean, which appeared around 1.7 million years ago. Characterized by large, beautifully worked hand axes, the Acheulean was linked to a more advanced species, Homo erectus. The progression seemed clear, a straight line from simple tools to complex ones, from one species to the next. But the story was about to get a lot more complicated. In 2015, at a site in Kenya called Lomekwi 3, archaeologists found crude stone artifacts dated to an astonishing 3.3 million years ago. This industry, dubbed the Lomekwian, predated the oldest known fossils of our genus Homo by 500,000 years. It suggested toolmaking might have originated with earlier hominins, like Australopithecus afarensis, Lucy species. This shattered the idea of a single, linear progression. It seemed different hominin species might have developed stone tool technologies concurrently, choosing their tools based on the task at hand. And it's within this complex picture that the act of carrying the stones themselves comes into focus. Let's break down these three major technological traditions. First, the Lomekwian, from 3.3 million years ago. These are the oldest tools we've ever found. They are large, hefty, and were likely made using a simple technique, like striking a stone against a stationary anvil. Their purpose is still debated, but their creation marks a crucial conceptual leap, the understanding that a rock could be intentionally fractured to create something useful. Transport distances for these tools were likely minimal. They used what was nearby. Their significance lies in proving that the capacity for toolmaking existed long before our own genus even walked the earth. Next comes the Oldowan, which appears around 2.6 million years ago and lasts for nearly 1 million years. This is the tradition we see at the Nyayanga site. The Oldowan represents a major shift. The primary goal was to produce razor-sharp flakes by striking a core with a hammerstone held in the other hand. This requires much more hand-eye coordination. These simple flakes were the scalpels of the Paleolithic, capable of slicing through tough animal hides and dismembering carcasses, as evidenced by the butchered hippo bones found at Nyayanga. And it is in the Oldowan that we see the first clear, systematic evidence of raw material transport. The hominins at Nyayanga and other sites showed a clear preference for high-quality, durable rocks like quartzite. The local geology offered only softer rocks that would dull or shatter. So they overcame this problem. They traveled up to 13 kilometers to find better stone. This wasn't a casual stroll. It was a purposeful, resource-driven expedition. Finally, we have the Acheulean industry, appearing around 1.7 million years ago, primarily associated with Homo erectus. This marks another quantum leap. Its hallmark is the biface, a tool worked symmetrically on both sides to produce iconic shapes like the hand axe. Unlike the Oldowan, where the goal was the flake, the Acheulean demonstrates a focus on shaping the core itself into a predetermined form. This required a mental template of the final product and the ability to plan a long sequence of strikes. Their logistical strategies also evolved. They transported high-quality stone over even greater distances, sometimes up to 60 kilometers. Furthermore, evidence suggests Homo erectus may have carried finished hand axes with them as part of a personal, curated toolkit. The hand axe wasn't just a disposable razor. It was a valuable, multi-purpose device worth carrying across the landscape. The claim that a hominin carried a specific rock across miles of ancient savanna isn't speculation. It's built on rigorous science. The key is geochemical analysis. Every rock has a unique chemical fingerprint based on its geological history. Using techniques like X-ray fluorescence, scientists can bombard an artifact with X-rays and read the unique energy signatures of the elements inside. They then go out and survey the entire region, taking samples from every possible rock outcrop or riverbed. When the chemical fingerprint of a tool from Nyayanga perfectly matches a quartzite outcrop 13 kilometers away, there is no doubt about its origin. By combining this sourcing with advanced dating methods, which use the Earth's magnetic field reversals and the decay of radioactive elements in volcanic ash, scientists can transform a simple stone tool into a data point on a prehistoric map, tracing the footsteps of our ancestors. So what does this all mean? What does carrying a rock for miles tell us about the mind of the carrier? It reveals a suite of cognitive abilities that are profoundly human. First and foremost, it shows foresight, the ability to plan for a future need. They carried that heavy stone because they anticipated a future requirement for a sharp flake, perhaps at a butchery site where they expected to find a carcass. This is a massive leap from the behavior of, say, a chimpanzee, which might find a nut and then look for a nearby rock to crack it. The hominins of Nyayanga were solving a problem before it even arose. This required a mental map of their landscape. They knew where they were, they knew where the good stone was, and they knew the route to get there and back. They possessed an integrated knowledge of how different resources were distributed across their territory. They were also engaging in abstract thought. They weren't just looking for a rock, they were looking for the right rock. They understood abstract qualities like durability and knappability. They weighed the cost of transport against the benefit of a more effective tool. When we compare this to our primate relatives, the contrast is stark. Chimpanzees do transport tools, but typically over very short distances in a series of unplanned treks. The systematic long-distance transport of specific, high-quality raw materials for future manufacture is a distinctly hominin innovation. It reveals a mind operating on a completely different cognitive plane. This behavior was not happening in a social vacuum. it was woven into the daily lives of hominin groups. The evidence from Nyayanga strongly supports the central place foraging model. This theory suggests that early hominins established home bases, favored spots where they would bring back resources. They carried high-quality stone from distant sources to these sites, where they then used the tools to butcher large animals. The accumulation of tools from far away and the remains of multiple animals suggests these were focal points on the landscape where technology, food, and social life came together. Bringing these vital resources to a common location would have fostered cooperation. Sharing high-value food like meat and marrow would have been a powerful social glue, promoting interdependence and laying the groundwork for more complex social structures. It may have even required a division of labor, with some individuals hunting while others undertook the expensive task of quarrying stone. Intriguingly, at Nyayanga, teeth belonging to the genus Paranthropus were found alongside the tools. Traditionally, these robust hominins were seen as specialized herbivores, while tool use was considered the domain of our direct ancestors, Homo. This find challenges that neat division, suggesting that toolmaking and transport may have been practiced by a wider range of hominins than we ever thought. For a small-bodied early hominin, hauling a heavy stone for miles represented a significant investment of time and calories. There had to be a major payoff, and there was. The immediate benefit was a better tool. High-quality quartzite produces a sharper, more resilient cutting edge than soft local stone. A better tool meant butchering a carcass was faster and more efficient, reducing the time spent exposed to predators drawn to the kill. Superior tools also expanded their menu. Sharp flakes were essential for slicing through thick hides and accessing the rich protein and fat in large animals. Hammerstones cracked open bones to get at the highly nutritious marrow. This dietary shift towards energy-rich foods is widely believed to have fueled the evolution of the large, metabolically expensive brains that characterize our lineage. By decoupling tool use from the immediate availability of raw materials, transport gave hominins incredible adaptive flexibility. They could gear up in advance, carrying their toolkit to a river crossing, where they knew animals would congregate. They were no longer tethered to areas that happened to have both food and good stone. They could now connect those resources across the landscape. The energy spent on transport was more than recouped by the energy gained from a better diet. This strategic investment in logistics paid evolutionary dividends. The legacy of these first commutes is written across the entire human story. The ability to plan, to map, and to transport resources are the cognitive foundations upon which all later human achievements were built. The social networks fostered by sharing resources at a central place would eventually blossom into the complex trade routes and globalized societies of today. The cost-benefit analysis undertaken by an early hominin weighing a stone in their hand is the ancient ancestor of the logistical calculations that underpin our modern world. The discoveries at Nyayanga reveal ancestors who were not just reacting to their environment, but actively shaping their own destiny. They were planners, strategists, and pioneers. Their journeys across the ancient African savanna were not just about finding better stones. They were charting a new evolutionary path, one defined by foresight, cooperation, and the relentless drive to use technology to master the challenges of their world. The echoes of their footsteps and the weight of the stones they carried can still be felt in the very foundations of our own.